Hi Claire, thank you for joining me today for our Women in Leadership series. Morning. Would you be able to give a brief introduction to who you are, and we will go from there?
Delighted to, yes. As you said, Claire Gates. I am the Global Head of Payments for Crown Agents Bank. I've spent 25 years in payments in various forms, in various organisations. I'm the mother of two daughters now, 18 and 16, and live here in London.
Very good. So can we start? You've clearly worked your way up through your career. I mean, it's quite exemplary. What motivated you to get into financial services generally?
Do you know what? I didn't proactively go out and actually decide to work in financial services or in payments. I started off as a chemical and process engineer. I knew when I did that in university, I actually had a chance to go to Japan and work at a company called Nippon Paint to do some research in polymer particles. And at that time, genetic engineering was all the craze. It was the big thing. Oh, wow. And I did that for like 9 months or so. And what I realized there was research wasn't for me. Okay, it's the same, doing the same thing over and over again with, you've got to be patient, you've got to be really passionate about innovation and research at that level.
Yeah.
Research is. And then I came back, I went into the family business, which was completely different, industrial, commercial, water heaters and boilers, so nothing to do with what I'd studied previously and what I'm doing now. And then I did that for a number of years, and then ultimately I went and did an MBA. And after my MBA, I then went into management consultancy.
Yeah.
And started to consult for companies that were in the payment space. Okay. And then joined American Express. That was my first real payment direct business opportunity. I went into American Express, running their European airline and car rental division that was there accepting the card as a method of payment in the very, very early days.
Yeah. How did you find that transition into a very different industry sector?
Yeah. Do you know what? I remember it. It's always one of those stories I tell because I think it's quite interesting and I hope people can learn from it. I remember seeing the advert, and actually, I'll be honest, the person I was with at the time saw it and thought this could be an opportunity for me because I had been advising from a consultancy perspective, a lot of the target audience that American Express wanted the role to manage.
Yeah.
Spoke to the headhunter, and I remember at the time, and I've worked with her a number of years subsequently, I remember her saying, we're interested, but they're looking for somebody a little bit more senior than yourself. And I said, look, hold that thought, let me come and meet you, and I'm going to give you enough reasons to put me in front of the client, and then the rest was history. It really was actually like that. And it's a story, I suppose I love to tell because it's got a nice ending to it. And not all of those sort of stories are, but it also was a little bit of, being assertive for me to first go through the headhunter to then ultimately get to American Express.
Yeah, I think that's some of the points that we'll touch upon as well, that we've done in other episodes as well. It's that confidence or the assertiveness from the get-go and belief in yourself to give yourself the opportunity.
And you have to believe in yourself because you're going to come across many other individuals, unfortunately, or circumstances which are going to knock you. So the key thing to always be is really confident. And I haven't been in all my career. I'm going to be totally honest. So it sounded, I think when I was younger, I was a little bit more so, even though despite all the years of experience you build up, I suppose success, experience, results to make you more confident. I think sometimes when you're younger, you are fearless in many ways. And then when I shifted to American Express away from the consultancy, there was a different cultural shift, absolutely. Less about industry, but more around the cultural side of it. When you're in consultancy, you pick up traits of a type of traits and competencies that don't always necessarily lift and shift into industry.
What were those traits that you felt were key to your success then?
I think being, some of the traits would be analytical, being able to have a strong financial acumen, having an ability to be results driven, understanding what is the difference between taking strategically a big picture and being able to translate it into small individual tasks, which sounds easier. It sounds easy, but actually it's really funny. It's actually something that people often find challenging because you've then got to prioritize what you do. Yeah. I suppose one of the simple ones is being able to write presentations very easily and analytical thinking.
Yeah. That comes more naturally to some than others, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. And if that isn't, there's a lot of research that I remember when back in American Express had really good talent programs and development programs. And for years they would, you'd mention your strengths, and then they'd ask you to articulate your development areas, and then they'd focus a development plan on those development areas. And then they've shifted that a little bit to say, work out what you're really good at, double down on that. And there's certain things you can be good at on your development areas, but there are other ones where if you're not, if you're more conceptual, why go to the, analytical thinking if that's not something you enjoy doing or naturally move towards?
Yeah. And did you feel that development program really helped you throughout your career and progression?
I do actually. I actually do felt it did. It helped me. It pushed me. I took on, extra work and experience. I always, jumped at opportunities. So when I went into American Express, I did a number of years as heading up the airline car rental, and that helped me to, I suppose, gain exposure. I would never have naturally thought the next role for me would have been a finance director role. I've never done, I did an MBA.
How did that come about?
Yes. So they knew that I wanted to, it was one of those times where I'd done a number of years, had a number of successes within that role. And so I was looking for the next opportunity. And the actual division that I worked in wanted to keep me, didn't have maybe necessarily the immediate role, which was a more senior one, but the finance role came up. And the president of that unit at the time said, any good CEO or president at some future in the career should always have done a role within finance. This is your great opportunity to make sure that you future-proof your career by doing this finance role. And I took it. And it was actually at the time in American Express where they wanted to bring empowerment back into the finance roles. Originally at that time, they were number crunchers. So what they did was they prepared the P&Ls, the balance sheets, but had minimal voice at the table with regards to strategic initiatives. And it was a time when Gary Crickenden was the CFO, and he wanted to bring that empowerment back to those financial roles to make sure they were sparing partners for the business leaders. So I took that role, went into completely a different circumstantial situation where I had limited experience, and probably there would be at least 10 people with more financial experience. But what I was able to do was balance between bringing my skill set up really quickly. And at the time I was doing a corporate finance course in London Business School. I'd taken that on by myself. And so I balanced that with actually being able to bring the business acumen, the business perspective into the role, and had a great team around me as well supporting me.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And then how did that help you then progress further through your career, take on the role that you did at PaySafe as an example?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it was being able to show that you're not one-dimensional. So I think that's really important. And I being my age now as well, and part of my career, I think it's really important that people think about always reinventing yourself. It helped me to be able to demonstrate that I was, I suppose, versatile, that I could do the number side of things as well as the commercial side of things. And I think for me now, it's very important at certain levels for people to have that depth of commercial acumen to be able to go and then take on other roles. Yeah, I hope that clears. Yeah, and then with PaySafe, there was a combination of roles that I've done, and American Express was one of them. I've done City card acquiring, where we turned around a business, sold it off, and then other startups. And I'd also worked internationally. So when PaySafe came along, they were looking for somebody who could take a very small fledgling underperforming business within their portfolio and to take it internationally and develop a product proposition that could be embedded in their wider service offering. And so that was me coming on board. I had experience doing B2B2C. So some of my career has been B2B and some of it's been B2C. And this was a solution which was B2B2C, based out in Austria. And it was all about creating a new product proposition, a new go-to-market, segmenting your customer base, your target audience, making sure you deliver something that was marketable, and then it sounds so easy, but it isn't, scaling it. And during the course, there are things that we did extremely well, the team did, and there are other things that we did quite well. Like with all cases, you think sometimes you have to bet on things or do a number of initiatives because not all are going to fly, and if you do 5, you hope that 2 fly, 1 sort of like pays for itself, and the other 2, well, you can, pass or hide away and think, well, you learn from that.
Yeah. And I guess with your roles that you've held so far, and obviously you're now with Crown Agents, you've touched on kind of the shift into those different specific industry niches and the change of B2B and B2C. So how have you felt that the industry has maybe changed in ability, mentality? Certainly you've mentioned leadership. What have you seen?
Okay, definitely in the payment space, what I've seen. And it's really funny because payments is a sector that for me has never stopped giving opportunities. And somebody told me that I'd go into payments and all these years later, I'd still find it challenging, but also engaging, interesting. I mean, it really is phenomenal. So when I first went into payments, I remember explaining the role, not American Express so much, but when I went in to do Citi, and it's Citi card acquiring, and I remember explaining what I was doing to my father. And my father's response to that was, oh, you're right at the bottom of, the value chain or the ecosystem, really. Because most of them were people thinking of, corporate banking, investment banking, whatever it may have been, not necessarily. And that was all those years ago. And in fairness, it was a sector that it wasn't sexy at all. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't sexy. You found very few women. Complete
shift now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's be honest with you. Everyone, or not everyone, apologies, but a lot of people want to get into it. Yeah, because it's so innovative. The technology, the developments, the consumer and the consumer demands, the business demands on it is just so exciting. And I thought, and I will be honest with you, I did think probably about 5 years ago, technology and innovation has hit its peak in the payment sector. That was probably about 5 years, and I was questioning it. That was my, not ignorance, but I thought that how could technology, innovation, create the next wave of products, of services, of solutions? Yeah. But it's still more to come, without a doubt.
Yeah, and we host industry events on this very topic, and I held one quite a number of months ago around the future of digital assets, embedded banking, and the evolving regulations around it at the moment as well. So it is certainly an industry sector to watch for what's next.
It is, absolutely, because I look at it from not my perspective, but I see a different demographic, or a younger demographic, or a more demanding tech-savvy demographic. They're looking for different ways, absolutely completely different to what I've been historically used to. I started my career in credit cards. Now, the functionality of a credit is still going to be around, but the way you consume it is going to be totally different.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about consumers, and I don't just mean an end consumer, it could be a client as well, and a business. Their needs change, evolve, and that puts pressure to innovate and solve solutions, or solve things, solve problems.
Yep. May I ask then, so in your career, what's the most innovative project or product that you've been involved in? Like, what's really engaged you?
Do you know what? When I think about it, I don't think, when I look back at it, and even at the time I didn't think it was innovative. However, it was at the time, it's really weird. We did at Pay Safe, Pay Later, which is white label, buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
We did in-store solution for that. Now, you've got it today. You're all aware of it. You use it with Klarna, and if you're in the US, you might have it with Affirm, and there's 100 other ones that are doing it. But at the time, we developed the solution with a client of ours to be able to do it real-time in-store across Europe. And that functionality and that product was then taken and replicated, and actually it's what we know today as being able to do it in-store. And then it was purely being able to scan a QR code and actually use that QR code to then open up, render a buy now, pay later application. And we did real time, so you could get an approval within milliseconds to say whether or not you could buy that product using buy now, pay later. And it was all streamlined and all automated by your mobile phone.
Set the precedent, didn't it? It certainly paved the way.
It did, actually. And I suppose what was harder for Pay Safe, Pay Later, because it's white labelled, nobody knew, you don't know about it. You'd go into the merchant or the clients, the shop, the store, and you'd think that they were the actual solution of it. Whereas Klarna, Klarna because that's the brand name, whereas Pay Safe, Pay Later, it was actually more labelled or branded wherever merchant you're going in. So it could have been Decathlon, for example. It could have been Mango. It could have been other brands like that.
Yeah. So Claire, I just want to ask you as well about your leadership style, because you've held very senior roles throughout your previous company. So what would you describe your leadership style as?
This is my description of it. I think if you spoke to some of my direct reports about how slightly different version of it, but there's no one style I don't think you can really say. And people give you the right answer, especially if you're being interviewed. They tell you how it is, or what they think you want to hear. Yeah. But I think it very much depends on the situation you're with and the individuals you're working with. And why do I say that? If you've got a sense of urgency in the business, so that it's got to be done really quickly, sometimes you're going to use a different style than actually if it's all very collaborative and you're brainstorming, you're wanting to work through situations. I think what I always say to a leadership team, there are always going to be situations where we make decisions as a group. Yeah, so it's very much, we throw in our thoughts, our views, we all collaborate together and we all come up with a consensus. There are times when I might be the one on the outside and the team are all agreeing one way and we go and move forward in that particular direction. And then the third one would be, there are things that I just decide because at the end of the day, we can't get a common consensus, or I think it's the right way forward. And as long as we as a group agree with that, we move in that direction.
It's more directive.
Yeah, it's more directive because you see something in an immediate need, whether it's a business requirement, a financial compliance, a regulatory, where actually there's less about debate and collaboration. It's about let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then there's, on an individual style, I would say somebody comes into the role, they're really experienced, they're hired because they're experienced, they complement your skill set, you let them go, you let them, and only when you think that things are maybe taking too long or they're going off track, do you really, get heavily involved in, micromanaging. The end of the day is you've hired and brought people in and you're managing them for reasons or leading, it's because they're good at the job. And actually, there's not one right way. It's actually working together as a team. Sometimes that takes years, but you learn that through experience.
Yeah.
And I think if I look back at my younger self, maybe I was a little bit too much wanting to control or believing I had the solution, or actually thinking if I worked with somebody and they solved it, it would reflect less on me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whereas I think over time I've realised actually it's not about that anymore. It's about getting the job done and the success. And sometimes that would mean less about my direct influence or me directly rolling my sleeves up and somebody else do it because they're capable, even and more so than I am, and can run with it. And that allows me or time for myself to focus on other things.
Yeah. And sometimes you need that delegation, don't you?
Yeah, of course
and just just
Yes. No
get
one
them.
person is going to, I always say that now, sorry to interject there, no, it's teamwork. A lot of it is teamwork. You've got to have the responsibilities and accountabilities, absolutely. But if you think you're going to make this big deal, and it's worth that deal maybe worth $1 million, $500,000, or what have you, and you think you're the only person who's going to get it across the line, you're quite naive at that. It's actually usually a wider infrastructure that helps support a particular initiative, product, solution, sales deal.
Yeah, teamwork and collaboration. Very, very strong message to
They
get
are.
out there
Yes,
to
it
those
is.
that maybe do less so.
Yes, indeed.
And you went on to become CEO
Yes.
within PaySafe. So
Yeah.
what influenced you maybe to want to become chief exec, and where did that direction in your career really?
I think so it was PaySafe Pay Later I was CEO of, and I think you want to do it because I think, as you're driving your career, you think that's the pinnacle of it. Yeah, to become the CEO or something. So you sort of like, especially when you're also wanting to set up your own businesses, I become the CEO of my own business or of other entities, and you get responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah.
I think having done that role now, I think it can be very lonely. It can be, it is like other roles are, you're there for a reason. You've got to drive the business forward strategically. You've got a leadership team, you've got to lead, you've got to set people's agenda and focus, but you've also got to be realistic on what's achievable. You report to somebody, you report to a board, you've got deliverables, etc. I think it's an interesting role to have. It's exciting. I think there are also other roles that, like for today, I don't have it in my role. I still think my job now is equally challenging, equally rewarding. So I think that's just sometimes you've got to be careful that one doesn't chase titles as opposed to the role itself.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, honestly, and I look back, I don't think I've ever done that. Hopefully not. But then I haven't been somebody who's planned my career. I think that's, if I look back on my career, I think, would it have been different? Would I have been in a different place or more senior? I don't know. If I had done more planning. I didn't. I took opportunities when they came along, and went with them. I flew with them.
And that's led you to Crown Agents Bank now,
Indeed,
as
absolutely.
Global Head of Payments.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. So our chairperson is Anne Khan, who used to work at MasterCard. I had, our paths across at MasterCard. I had in the past known about Crown Agents Bank, and, big respect and kudos for them for the markets that they play in, the emerging markets, in particular in Africa. This is a frontier and a region that's going to explode exponentially over the next 3 to 5 years, without a doubt, from a both B2B and B2C perspective. It's always been an interesting region for many payment companies, for many banks, for many institutions. It's also had its challenges and what Crown Agents Bank do really well is they know how to navigate it. They've got the skill sets, etc. And there's a mass opportunity for many companies to be able to benefit from not just what we're doing there, but the population side, the emerging market that's going to be created from it. I see some interesting developments over the next few years, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's coming across as it's very much like you can make a difference, which I think you're exactly right. It's what we tell our candidates and clients all the time. It's not just about job title. It's very subjective anyway. So the opportunity afforded to someone, it can be career changing. So
yeah, it can actually.
Can I ask you then, Claire? So we've talked a little bit about your career trajectory, and thank you for going through that with me. When you have held those senior leadership roles, how have you found, and you can reference any institution, how have you found that changing, almost like adoption of diversification? Have there been certain policies that you've had to really adhere to throughout those companies?
going into the payments where it was very male dominated, it was, in some ways there was opportunities because you could stand out, but also you had to, deal with, I suppose, preconceived ideas about certain things, or certain individuals' preconceived ideas about a gender, etc., or an age, those sort of things. I haven't let it, I wonder if it has impacted me or I've done things proactively. I'm not sure I have. I've maintained wanting to identify opportunities or roles or hire people that I know that I can work with, who are going to get the job done, and have, I don't want to say similar mindsets because that's not diversity, but we've got a task to do. Are they going to add value? Can we work together? Are we going to not all line agree? That's not what it's about. And as a default, I haven't pivoted towards any particular thing. I've just found a team of people who are able to deliver the objectives that we've got to deliver.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that answers the question. Well,
it does.
It does. Yeah. And the other thing I thought about before, and it actually came to me when I was at MasterCard, I hadn't thought about this before. They had a women's network group. Yeah. And it's really strong there. And actually, it was the first time ever before I'd heard about, not heard about it, but they had a women's network. And I was always a bit like thinking, why do we need this? What's the importance of it? We should be standing on our own 2 feet and pushing ourselves forward. I don't want to be just a number for the sake of it, etc. But it was there that I actually acknowledged that you do need a support network. You do need infrastructure. There's still this situation in certain sectors, in certain industries, even today, where people are getting jobs because they know somebody else, or they're that's not a problem if they're the right one for the role. That's not a problem in my mind on that one. But also that they're not, it's a bit of a boys' network. Yeah, and it still happens. And I can still see it to some extent.
Do you still
today.
See that?
Yeah, I do actually. I do, yeah.
I think the industry's come a long way in
it has, yeah.
The mentality certainly around this, and you're right, you're exactly right. We've touched on things like diversification of gender, obviously age. In others we've touched on social mobility as well, being maybe a hindrance to those people who haven't been afforded the opportunity to go to university and study a particular degree, which would have vetoed them from the get-go. You
would do. Now, I think that will change. It's really interesting. So having my eldest daughter's going off to university. The second one, she's considering going to university to do medicine, but she keeps then coming to me and saying, well, actually, you know what? If I don't do medicine, why do I go to university? What's the point? I could go in, and there's some really good training programs now. And the cost of going to university, the debt that you accumulate, is there actually an opportunity for people to have as successful careers in organisations, irrespective of whether they went to university or not? Because sometimes you might go to a university, and actually, a lot of times, and why should it not be the case that you go and study something that you enjoy does not necessarily mean it's directly applicable to the role that you're going to be applying for. So I think we need to be more open-minded about it.
Yeah. And again, a lot of companies are.
Yeah.
But I think there's still progress that
we do. I think we need to make more progress. And I hadn't thought about it, but I think there should be. And I think companies are making progress. I think we're seeing more of it to come over the next few years. Especially when I'm hearing people proactively, I'm not talking about one sample case, which is my daughter, but there's so much about the evaluation of whether going to university is the right way to develop your career. And there's so many other training programs that people are launching that are really invaluable. One of the top, I heard about this, one of the top students at one of the schools, my husband's a teacher, he went on to do a internship with NASA. Now, I think most people would say, well, he didn't go to university, he went straight into NASA. That actually is a pretty awesome, it was an awesome move, hey? Now, he was a top star pupil, but you know what I'm saying? There are probably lots of opportunities out there in all different levels for people to gain an early traction in their career.
Yeah. And again, everybody thinks that maybe university is the only route
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
get into it. So,
And maybe people want to go somewhere first, have a number of years, and then do it remote learning or whatever it may be. I think different people have different ways that they want to, move into the workplace or study, etc.
what more do you think certain institutions could do then? So, if we are talking about financial services, typically where traditionally it was maths, computer science, economics degrees, etc. What do you think they could do more of moving forward?
I certainly would like to see, I think I think they're trying to do this. I think we have to be careful that when organisations go and do programmes with universities, right? So that was already cut out a demographic who didn't go to university, or if they go to schools, what type of schools they're going to. For certain people, they might not even think about university because they've come from a background or a family, nobody went to university, or it's just not in their vision. But they might not get the opportunity to then start a role in, an organisation. It depends what the school's like, it depends what the payment industry or the financial institution industry or the banking industry is doing with a local community, a certain audience, etc.
Yeah. There are a few things that you've mentioned that I'd just like to circle back to, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So just coming to the Women Network in MasterCard. So how much of a role did that play in terms of maybe a mentor or a role model for you?
It is. I've had both, I still have, male and female mentors and role models, and I think it's really important actually. It's not always easy to find, and you've got to find somebody or something that works and gels, but I do think it's important, absolutely. And I recently, last year or so, joined Albright, the Women's Networking Club. I think that's really incredible. I think they do a phenomenal job. And there will be other ones as well that also do equally. But I think that's having, sisterhood. Yeah. When I was younger, it was I don't know if I gave it the respect that it was due. And now I do think it's a very good, institution, principle, whatever one would describe it, to help you as an individual personally, but also professionally. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons that we do this, that we host this series. It's to provide that platform to really talk to the younger audience and talk to females or just younger talent coming through anyway. Yeah. May I ask as well, you've referenced your daughters. Yeah. So how do you personally find balancing the level of leadership that you have, the seniority, with being a mother to two girls?
I've got to be true to myself, because I have said this before. Unfortunately, I don't think I am that good role model of saying, how do I balance? I don't. I think, especially up until probably about a couple of years ago, or COVID, I travelled constantly.
Okay.
So I did Monday to Fridays. Most of the time I would be travelling. That said, what I do is Monday to probably Thursday, Friday, it's my work. But then at weekends, I'm very much, with my daughters the whole time. I found that when they're younger, when they're babies, it's a different need to when they're teenagers. So then
I've not yet got to that stage with my son.
So I've felt for my children, they've needed me more in the later years to navigate life, and I mean broader life questions. And some of it relates to school, friendship groups, all these sort of things. And actually I'm really happy now I've been able to spend more time. And I think I don't think I could do as much traveling as I did in my early career, not because I'm older, but also because at this moment in time, these are precious years for my daughter, both for me with them, but also, for them, making sure they make the right decisions and me helping them make the right decisions.
So either whether this is to your daughters or, maybe any younger females that you might mentor as part of the Women Network or Albright as well. What advice would you give to younger females coming through into the industry, or just generally navigating a career?
Do something that you enjoy, all right? Make sure you enjoy something, because All roles will go through a phase where, you know, it's the honeymoon period. You've just started, it's so exciting. And then you will always go through ups and downs. So make sure ultimately you're doing something that you believe in and passionate about, because those days or those weeks when things aren't going to plan or the pressure's coming down, you still realize, you know, you still have fun at the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And I think because if you're enjoying it, it goes and spills out into your personal life.
Positivity breeds positivity.
Absolutely. There you go. You said it so eloquently.
Thank you. Well, look, great advice. Thank you, Claire, for sharing, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.